Hello everyone, I'm checking that both live streams are available. Oh, seems PeerTube is okay, YouTube is okay too. Cool. Today we talk about Guix packages. There are a lot of messages in different Guix communities, chats and mailing lists about some missing packages or outdated versions and so on. And today we cover this topic and what we can do about it. We will be talking mostly about missing packages, but we'll talk about a little outdated version of packages too. Let me open my notes to make it available for you. I will try and we'll try one more time to have a chat on my screen and hope today it will work. On the previous stream, for some reason, I didn't receive any messages and I saw them only after stream was finished and when I watched the recording of the stream. Okay, but let's go back to the topic and we'll answer a question. Is the number of packages in Guix really that small? Let's take a look at Repology site, which shows the number of packages in different distributions and repositories. And here we can see the top repositories, which has 10 entries. And first one is Nix, which is kind of expected because Nix packages seems to be probably one of the largest GNU Linux repositories. And it also works on other operating systems. Previously, the leader was Arch user repository, which is a repository where a lot of people contribute, and now it takes the second place. After that, Debian and derivatives of Debian, a lot of packages, but you can see much less than Nix packages and our. And after that, FreeBSD, Fedora, and related distributions. Rosa, actually not very familiar with this distribution. Gentoo, Alt Linux, and the ninth place is GNU Guix. And you can see on preview, I issued a command for searching packages in Guix repository, and it shows around 19,000 of packages, which is quite a lot. And it's almost the same number as all those distributions have, but it's much smaller number than Nix packages. I hope there everything is okay with the stream because I have some notification from YouTube dashboard, but I will stop preview of the stream to save some resources on my laptop. Okay, going back to the topic. Cool, no says that everything seems good. Very nice. According to this table, Guix is among top 10 distributions, doesn't counting derivatives of some very large distributions like Debian. Here probably are around 30 or maybe more distributions that shares packages with Debian and so on. And yes, it's obvious a huge gap between Nix and even Debian or Fedora and Guix. Actually, not so huge between Guix and Fedora, but quite huge between Guix and Nix and Guix and Debian. And the question here is this number really that small? Actually, it's not. And I will explain why. Let's take a look at the history of the distribution and package manager. GNU Guix is a package manager, and Guix system is distribution based on this package manager. It started in 2012. It's 9 years ago, and it's a quite young package manager and quite young Linux distribution. And for such a short period of time, being a new distribution, not the fork of already existing one, it's quite a good progress, because Guix doesn't use any package base that existed before. Someone may say that Guix somehow branched from Nix, but it's not exactly true. Nix-daemon and the source code of Nix-daemon is used by Guix package manager, but it doesn't share anything related to packages, because Nix packages written in Nix language, and Guix using Guile for defining packages, and every package in Guix is defined from the ground. That means that nothing from Nix repository was reused by Guix, only the implementation of build daemon. So quite a good progress for 9 years, and personally, for myself, I am quite satisfied with default Guix repository, and I have almost everything that I need, and I have only a few custom packages that I created myself, which probably not yet upstreamed, around 10 or maybe something like that. So I'm okay with the current state of the Guix repository, and I don't miss any software, but many people do. And it's not necessarily related to the way Guix handles licensing and free software. It's a very important part of Guix, because it's free software approved distribution, and it doesn't allow to package any proprietary software or software with some strange licenses. So it is a required property for the package to be in Guix, but not enough. The another problem that arises why some packages that are free software not present in the Guix, it's a bootstrapping problem. So Guix doesn't package any software that comes in releases with some blobs. Because blobs, we have to trust the content of what is inside this blob, and it's not very cool in many aspects, including reproducibility and security and so on. So every package that is present in Guix repository can be built from source. And some packages requires a lot of stages, for example, compilers. For example, to build latest Rust compiler, you need to build a previous Rust version of Rust compiler, and to build the previous version, you need to build older version of Rust compiler and so on, and do it around 20 times to get something from first and earliest version of Rust compilers, which was built using C language or something like that, to the latest version of the Rust compiler, which can build itself. You need to do this chain of builds, and it's this process called bootstrapping, and all software present in Guix repository is bootstrapped. And it's really cool for properties I mentioned earlier, for security and reproducibility, and it makes some software hard to package for Guix and to be present in official Guix repository. So there are a lot of free software that is not in Guix repo for this exact reason. And some software not in the Guix repo because it requires some additional work, like creating a new build system and work around some technical issues, but everything that can be bootstrapped and a free software will probably appear in some future in the Guix. Knowing that the Guix is a relatively young distro, we probably need to wait a little more to get more software in the official repository. Okay, few comments in the chat. With functional package managers, nix-shell feels like MVP, minimum viable product, while Guix feels like correct, even if it has less packages or takes longer. Very cool comment, and this is idea that I mentioned probably almost a year ago in the stream when I was talking about differences between Nix and Guix, and Guix feels like more production ready or more mature software comparing to Nix, and even if it has a less number of packages, but the underlying infrastructure, the code, the quality of the code, the CLI, and everything related to it looks much more mature than Nix. And Nix looks like more a research project and proof of concept. But currently Nix is more popular and used in production much more than Guix. But I still think that Guix has a very good potential. Especially it has a experience that was brought by Nix and can solve the problems that already faced by the Nix project. So it's not a surprise that in some cases it do better than Nix. Pandemic, hi, and everyone who joined a little later too. Okay, we talked about the reasons why some software can be missing in Guix repositories, and knowing that, you now can adjust your expectations and doesn't require some software to be present right now, and will understand the amount of work done by the maintainers and appreciate it, and obviously ask people who already participating in the project to package what you need in case you can't do it yourself. And I'm almost sure if it technically possible and will not take months or years for the person, he will help you with it and even can do it for you if you can't. And another idea. Another idea related to the way to work around the problem that you are missing something in the Guix repository. First of all, there are a lot of alternatives, and probably that's something you are missing right now, already presented with some alternative in the Guix repository. Maybe you used some fancy text editor which can be packaged for licensing reasons or for technical reasons, like it's hard to bootstrap this application. You can find a lot of different text editors which already present. It will require some time for migration, but you will get a reproducible and relatively secure software. but maybe you will sacrifice some previous experience and will need to learn a little more to use a new software. But it's already a lot of packages in the repository, and just look for alternatives and maybe they will suit you. It's probably very obvious advice, but sometimes people don't do it for some reason. The second one, use appropriate hardware. There are some cases when you want some software to be packaged, but it's not packaged for licensing reason, for example. Some proprietary blobs are required to make hardware works, and here the suggestion or idea, try to use the hardware which works with your software. I think that principles and ideas which proposed by GNU project and Guix project are quite good for overall scientific and software engineering community. So I appreciate their work, and I suggest you to appreciate it too. And if you are willing to use the Guix, you probably want to take a proper hardware. Actually, if you want to use all other GNU Linux distribution which doesn't package proprietary software, you need to find good hardware which supports which has a good support and doesn't require to install any proprietary software. But you doesn't have to do it. Actually, there are some workarounds for that. And talking about picking hardware for a software, I think sometimes it looks strange for people, but in reality, you don't buy iPhone and don't reinstall Android operating system on it, because probably Android won't work with iPhone, even if iPhone has a good quality or looks good for you and you want to have this stylish design. You find an appropriate phone that supports the operating system you want, and you buy it. The same work for PCs. You don't buy a PC and try to install Mac on it, or vice versa. Actually, some people try to do it, but it obviously hacky and sometimes works not very good. And so there's no real issue with picking hardware for your software. But sometimes when you constrain with money and you have only hardware which requires some proprietary software, you probably need some workaround right now. There is a way. You probably can package this software yourself or find other people who already did it. I don't recommend it, and please try to escape it as much as possible. The third point of handling missing software is using additional channels and substitute servers for these channels. Additional channels I discussed in manual in the section called channels. For people not familiar with it, Guix works in a distributed way, so you don't have to rely on the central repository. Actually, you want to do it, but you don't have. You can set something that's called channels, and here you can see that I have two channels in my current Guix, and the one is a Guix channel which pinned to this commit, And the second one is RD channel, which is my personal channel, which contains my packages and some definition for home and system services. And if I want to add more repositories, what is called repositories in other distributions, I will be adding more channels with software if I need it. But as I said, I almost satisfied with Guix repository, and if something missing, I contribute it to Guix, or I create a package definition in my personal repository and try to contribute it later back to the Guix. So if you need to expand the number of available packages, you just add channels to a Guix and use packages which is available in other channels. But be sure that if you use a channel and this channel requires have packages that requires a lot of build time, and we know that all the software packaged in Guix in most cases packaged as a source and some build instruction for it, it will take a lot of time to build huge software like iSCAT or Firefox or Linux kernel or something like that. Probably the channel can provide substitutes. The author of the channel, the substitute is a server which contains pre-built binaries which created from the recipes present in the channel. So you can include a channel and a substitute server for it, and you won't be building locally the package if the binary version is available on a remote server. And to be sure that you doesn't load some crappy proprietary blob that contains some spyware or something like backdoor, you can do a special operation which compares the result of your local build and remote build, and you can check that the hash of the build is equal, and be sure that your local build is equal to the remote build. But you don't have to do it. You can just trust the remote substitute server and use binaries that are provided by it. But you always can check it. And it's a good balance between source-based distribution and binary distribution. It doesn't have to trust pre-built binaries, and you always have a way to check if the something provided by substitute server is built from the sources and recipes which is declared in the channel. Okay, what if you can't find a channel which contains the software you want and you are missing? You can package it. In most cases, the well-written software is not hard to package. And it takes just a few lines of the code. In my previous streams, you probably see as how I packaged OBS and plugins for it, and some other packages, and it took just a few minutes, and I did it during the stream. You can find a manual, a Guix manual, and find some examples of the packages. You can read a Guix cookbook, or find some articles in the internet, or watch the streams or videos about writing packages for Guix, and write your own. And after that, you can use them locally, or share with the world using your personal channel, or upstream them and send them to Guix mailing list, and they will be included in Guix repository. Actually, the Guix community is quite responsive, and they not only accept the good patches, but also tells what you can improve in your package, and helps you to upstream software if you started to do it. And the fifth option for today is using as a package manager. As we remember from the list here, the packages the biggest number of the packages available is present in nix package repository. And it's a good idea, probably good idea, to use nix package manager to install the software you're missing. And Nix, both Nix Daemon and Nix CLI is available in Guix, so it's quite easy to install it without any additional third-party scripts or articles, and get all the packages available for Nix on your Guix system. Why not to use some other package managers? Probably you can do it, but if you try to use something like apt-get or RPM or any other regular package managers, they will conflict with your system because they will try to override some system directories, and you can get some mess. Probably it won't break your system. You will be able to roll back or clean up the stuff, but in most cases it's not desired to operate directly on your folders under root directory because the Guix and Nix works in a little different way from what we used to in GNU Linux distributions. So the regular package managers is not a good idea in most cases, but probably something like Flatpak or Snap or something like app image, if I recall correctly, they store all the files related to the package in a separate directory and doesn't conflict with your system, and probably work in a way that won't mess with your system. So it's probably okay to use them. And if I remember correctly, Flatpak is packaged for Guix, or maybe not. I'm not sure. Anyway, the idea is that we don't want to use regular package managers like apt or RPM. We can use Flatpak and similar things that doesn't conflict with your system package manager. And it's a good idea to use a Nix package manager because it's obviously not conflicting with Guix package manager, because they build and store all the necessary stuff in separate folders called store, Nix store, and GNU store. And after that, they just create symlinks to the files in the store, which is quite good and non-conflicting. Okay, I will read a few more messages from the chat. Arthur says, "Hi Andrew." Hi Arthur. I'm currently on Nixos, and despite the fact that Nixos has lots of packages, it still lacks of software. For instance, it's hard to find antivirus. I would like to use Nixos or Guix on my working machine, and because of company policy, I have to install a lot of mandatory software. Not sure that Guix can help with that, but who knows. Yes, currently I'm trying to build system with OS3 based system, immutable, using layers built with containers, Docker, Podman, and Flatpak for GUI. What I can say? Probably it's a little sad that company forces you to use some software that is not packaged in Nix and Guix. That probably means that it's not ideal software, because a good software is quite easy to package with those package managers in most cases, and there is no easy solution for that. But if that software is not very strange and uses basic mechanisms like many software do, you will be able to package it with Guix yourself. But if it's proprietary software, it obviously won't go to the official repo. But you can create recipes for these packages on your local machine or your personal channel and use them. I don't know what software you're referring to and can say how hard or easy to package it. But you can consult in the IRC or mailing list or maybe some other communities and ask people how to package and how hard to package the software you need to use. Matthew says, sometimes you can get local binaries to work that you compile or get on the internet if it has been statically compiled but has been hit or miss. Actually, you probably you're probably proposing the solution to get local binaries which statically compiled. Okay, another comment by Noah. I ended up switching from Guix system to Arch with foreign Guix, and my main issue was with wanting to use very up-to-date software for development. Most everything I want as a user, Guix has. Particular pain points were GTK4 and Rust nightly. Using Nix or Docker seems like an interesting alternative. The very huge difference between Nix package manager and Guix package manager, especially the policy about packages that are going to the repositories, is a bootstrapping. Nix doesn't require the software to be bootstrapped, and it can use releases provided by third parties. So the package in Nix packages repository can contain a script which just takes a archive provided by maintainer of the software, takes this archive, extracts it, and plays binaries in the right places. So some software in Nix can be present while it's missing in Guix, just because Nix doesn't care so much about bootstrapping, and the packages which are open source and free software, but it's hard to bootstrap, can be present in Nix but missing in Guix. And talking about the latest version of software, yes, sometimes newer version like GTK for GNOME 40 and some other things are hard to get because there are quite a huge changes, and bootstrapping such software requires a lot of time. But Rust Nightly, I don't know about Rust Nightly, but probably there are some channels, external channels, which has latest Rust version, and you can use them to get Rust Nightly, but I'm not sure that such channels exist. Anyway, I saw that Rust is already here in the Guix, and you can update from time to time the definition of Rust package and get the latest version, or probably can create your own channel which automatically update Rust package definition for very latest version and use additional channel that you created yourself. It's also a good idea. I know that in the Nix community there is a channel for Emacs packages, and the recipes in this channel are generated automatically from the mail repository, and you always can get a lot of Emacs packages automatically generated from milk repositories. So you can do the similar stuff for Rust, I think. Okay, going back to the options which we have. We talked about package managers, alternative package managers that we can install on Guix system, or just using Guix package manager. And the next alternative is to use Docker. Docker is already packaged and even has a system service which allows to start Docker daemon using Guix system. And it works, and the configuration is quite easy, and that means that you can run anything that is present on Docker Hub and other registries for Docker images, and it's quite a lot of software that can be run. And I think these two options will cover not all the software that is exists, obviously, but 99% or something around, because the hugest repository which exists for GNU Linux distributions, Docker, which is also has quite huge registries with a lot of different softwares, and the nice thing about Docker that Docker images can be based on any other distribution, and that means that almost all software packaged for almost any Linux distribution which can be run in Docker can be launched by Docker. But there are a lot of other downsides of this approach, but still a solution if you really need to run some rare or hard to package software. Okay, let's go to practice, and let's start from Docker. I will show you how to get Docker in your GNU Guix system. For that, you need probably two things. Let me find something called feature Docker. Here I use RD to define some services which will go to my home environment and my system config. System config is something that defines your operating system, and home environment is something that defines the things that should be present in your home folder in configs directories, and the packages that has to be installed for your user. And good news, probably a week ago or something around, the Guix home project was merged into Guix, and now it's available in latest version of Guix and can be used to manage your user packages, configurations for your user land software and other stuff. Okay, another question from Mattia. What about language specific package managers like cargo, pip, etc? There is a solution. There are a few solutions for that. First of all, there is a Guix import command which can generate recipes for the packages from different repositories. It's the first option. The second option is to create something that I would call transitive package managers. It's a special snippet of code or a lot of code that can take the name of the package and maybe log file of some language specific package manager, for example poetry log for Python, and generate package definitions and build them using Guix. There is no such project in Guix world right now, if I recall it correctly, but there is a project for Nix which called Poetry to Nix, and here is an article. What is done here? Right here is a project which can take a poetry log file, and by defining a simple Nix expression, you can get all the packages defined in poetry log built by your Nix daemon using this intermediate layer. I will post a link in the chat. You can take a look at it, and probably we can do something similar in Guix world for different package managers. It's a good question how hard to do it and how good it will work, but it's obviously possible, and it's an interesting project. And if you have time and want to learn more about Guix or to contribute in the Guix ecosystem, it will be a good project to do. Another question or comment from Artur. Drenv plus nix-shell is awesome. Or toolbox on OS3 based system, Fedora Silverblue or Ubuntu Core. Actually, I'm not very familiar with OS3. I heard about it, but didn't have any practical experience with it. But maybe I will take a look after the stream. Drenv plus nix-shell is good, and there was a project, there was a stream called per project development environments. I think a few weeks ago on my channel. You can take a look, and I discuss the way you can set up your development environment using Drenv Guix environment, which is a tool similar to nix-shell. And in Nix ecosystem there are some other tools which has some benefits over nix-shell in terms of speed and persistency. But yeah, Drenv plus something that manages your environment is a cool for development, and I encourage you, if you didn't see the stream, take a look at it. It's quite informative. Okay, let's go back to the Docker and how to set up it in Guix. Actually, everything that you need to do, you have to do three things. First thing is to define service for Docker. It accepts few arguments. You can find them in the manual or in the source code, but here it's just a list of packages and probably some other parameters that I didn't want to change from defaults. Probably it will be enough to define a service like that to have it in your system. The other thing that you need to do is to add a Docker group to your user account. You also can do it using services. Account service, probably this one. I don't know why there is no documentation about account service type. But okay, I hope. Okay, I will show the examples that I have in my repository related to adding account for your user, group for your user. Here what I do, I declare a user account, and in supplementary groups field, I have a list of groups, and in case there is a feature which defines Docker, it also adds a Docker group to this list. But in most cases, you just need define a user account record with supplementary groups containing Docker, and set users field of operating system record to the list of users, or you can extend account service type, probably this one, if I remember correctly. This one creates users. And after that you have a working Docker daemon, and you will be able to access it with CLI using your user. And after that you just need a CLI and maybe some other clients. Here I use a Docker client for my Emacs, but you can use just basic Docker CLI utility and run containers as everyone do with Docker. Not a rocket science. Installation is quite simple. Actually, probably even simpler than in Ubuntu or some other mainstream repositories. At least a few years ago, it was quite a painful experience to install Docker in such distributions, because you need to add some external repositories, remove some conflicting outdated versions, and do some other interesting stuff to just get Docker installed. Here you just define in Guix system, you just define a service, you install a package for a user, and you add your user to the Docker group. Actually, you don't even need to do it if you use Docker CLI using sudo or other privilege escalation mechanism, but it's better to use Docker CLI using your user and just adding your user to the Docker groups. Okay. Keliak says, is it not result 3 in that search? Which search? Probably this one. Account service type. No, it's an article about writing about defining system services, and here just a short explanation of account service type and why we extend it, but there is no documentation for account service type itself. For example, if I take a look at Docker service type, I will get something like that: Docker service type and data type Docker configuration, which can be passed to Docker service type, which has some arguments and I expected something like that to be present for account service type, but it's not here. But you always can take a look at the source code. GNU Guix, probably it's shadow namespace. User account re-exported from another namespace, and account service type is defined here. Let's take a look at the content of it. Account service type extends activation and shepherd, and let's take a look at the record which is used. Base groups, skeleton. Yeah, probably this service adds accounts, adds users and related information during activation to your system. And you can take a look at the source code in GNU system shadow model. And user account record itself defined in a different model, probably in GNU system accounts. Okay, going back to the another option, which is using Nix on the Guix system. It's a little harder than using Docker on the Guix system, but also not so hard. And actually using RD, let me show my configs SCM feature Docker. I use only one line to enable Docker in my system and have all the necessary settings set up. This line adds a service, add my user to the appropriate group, and add Docker CLI to my user packages. And something like that we can make later available for Nix. For example, we define a feature in the list of enabled feature for my user, and Nix added to system services, appropriate configurations created in my home folder, and all necessary packages is installed. But today we will do this process manually. First of all, we need to add a Nix service type to our system. I can do it by defining. Actually, if I will be doing it for real, I would do something like use GNU services and GNU services Nix. I will do it somewhere above, and instead of this strange thing, I will write service Nix service type. I just don't want people to be scared by this notation. I will just move it here. It's a temporary code that I used to test, not to pollute my model with additional imports. But in reality, if I would like to have a persistent solution, I will import necessary models, GNU services and GNU services nix, and will add a line to my operating system services field. And after that, I will get a nix daemon in my system. Let's actually, it's my home configuration. I need to build my operating system. Okay, and here you can see nix daemon not appeared here because I already have it. But if I didn't had it, here you would see something like nix daemon has been started. And to make sure that the daemon is started, I will type herd sudo herd status nix daemon. Boom. Nix daemon is started and everything works fine. Actually, I added this daemon just 1 hour ago, or something around that, and I didn't have any issues. I just added this line to the list of my system services. For you, it will be it will look a little different because you don't use features mechanism from RD. You will need to add this service in the list of services in your operating system record in services field. But other than that, it will be the same. You just add one line to your operating system configuration and you get nix daemon. After that, you can type something like Guix environment --ad hoc nix and get nix CLI, which can interact with nix daemon and can build packages and so on. And for example, we can use nix-shell to get a temporary environment with some package available. But before doing that, after clean installation, when you installed Nix for the first time, you need to add a channel because by default there is no channels in your Nix, and you need to issue this command, and after that you can take a look at the list of the Nix channels, and after that you need to update the channels, and that's it. Now you can work with your Nix package manager installed on your Guix system. And here what we will do, we will try nix-shell. Let's check that htop is not installed, and let's issue this command, and we get an error because there are some variables that are not defined yet, environment variables that are required for Nix to work properly. And to have those variables set, we need to call this command, which sources a nix-sh file, which is provided by nix daemon. We can take a look at the content of this file. It just sets few environment variables required for Nix to operate, and after that nix-shell -p htop will work. Actually, you will see some lines about building htop or downloading it from substitutes, but I already did it, and it doesn't build another time and just provide me with htop. And you can see it works, and we can see that this file comes from Nix store, which is kind of expected, I think. The downside of nix-shell, actually, comparing to Guix environment, that it works only with bash, and it's necessary to hack around to get it working with zsh or another shell. And nix space shell works with zsh, but nix shell is a subcommand which available only in newer version of Nix. Here we have version 2.3, the latest version 2.3.15 stable version, and the next version, which is not released yet, 2.4, and it's important version because it has flakes mechanism, which is very interesting thing, and many projects in Nix community relies on it already, even if it available only in Nix unstable. And to get Nix CLI with flakes support, if you don't know what flakes is, you can watch documentation, wiki, or my stream on Nix flakes, or maybe not stream, maybe video that I did before. Okay, let's get Nix unstable and check that flakes works. For that, we will need to issue only one command. Oops, that's the wrong desktop. And we launched another Nix shell, and now we have a latest Nix version available to us. And here we see that the Nix has 2.4 version. And now we can use nix-shell subcommand. Previously, when we typed nix-shell, it says it's not a recognized command, but with latest Nix, let me do this in a little different fashion to make you distinguish between nix-shell with latest Nix and my ZSH with Nix. I will do this thing. Here we have a Nix from GNU store, and when I run Nix shell, we have, where is Nix? We have Nix from Nix store. So the Nix unstable is a package from Nix store, a binary from Nix store. Okay, now we want to write Nix shell, something like Nix packages htop, and here it says that Nix command and flakes are disabled, so I need to add something like that to the flags, and now we see that flakes mechanism obtaining htop from remote repository. A lot of stuff to download. I hope it won't break the stream. And while building, I will read one more comment from Arthur. OMG Guix plus Nix. no space on hard drive, I guess. Moreover, if there is a Docker, no space for user files. Quite true. If you don't do garbage collecting regularly and have both nix and Guix, you can get out of space quite quickly, especially if you have relatively small SSD or hard drive. And Docker with its huge Docker images also can take a lot of space. Nice. We got htop, and as you can see, it works. And we can see that this htop provided by Nix, and the way we got it is using flakes. So we have the latest version of Nix CLI working with Nix daemon provided by Guix system, and everything seems to work very good. And now we have access to the largest repository of the packages that is available right now for GNU Linux distributions. And I think all the items I mentioned earlier will help you to solve the problems. Don't go straight to the latest one and not install Nix package manager or Docker. Try to solve your problem using first items, find alternatives, use appropriate hardware, maybe look for Guix channels and substitutes. If there is no packaged version of your software, try to package it, and only after that fall back to Nix and Docker. Thus the reasons not to use Nix package manager and Docker is that you will break integrity with your Guix system and Guix home. Not integrity, probably there is a different word, integration, which is correct for my idea. Because, for example, you can't use a package provided by Nix package manager in your Guix home, or even a Docker image or binary inside a Docker container, and you won't be able to build a reproducible environment for your user or reproducible operating system using some external tools. Actually, probably there are some ways to make a quite tight integration between Nix package manager and Guix home or Docker and Guix system, but it will be very hacky and I think unnecessary. So try to prefer Guix packages when it's possible, and only in rare cases when you really needed something that is not yet present in Guix, fall back to the alternatives. Okay, I have one more point here which I wanted to do interactively with you, but I already quite tired, and it was 1 hour since we started, so we won't be doing it today. Actually, I expected I will finish in 10 or 20 minutes maybe, but as usual, 1 hour and something. What I wanted to do, I wanted to define a feature for RD which do all the stuff which we done right now manually, do automatically using Guix home and Guix system. So the feature will add a system service, will update Nix channel, and will add this line to your bash profile or ZSH profile, and will create a configuration which will enable experimental features. So you won't need to issue all those commands, and they automatically will be enabled when you use feature nix in your RD configuration. But we won't be doing it today. Maybe later I will do it myself, or maybe not. We'll see. One more comment. What about services and cron drops from a local file binary, Docker container, or a Nix flake package? You can do it, but it's not reliable because you are assuming that this thing will be present, that your network will be okay at the moment, and so on. So, for example, when you use Guix deploy tool, you build a local operating system locally and deploy this operating system to remote host, and the remote host doesn't have an access to Docker Hub. You will get a system which can't run a cron drop or service because it can download Docker image or Nix package definition or something like that, and you will end up with partially working system. It's maybe not very often case, but it can happen. So it's kind of hacky, and I will prefer not to do it, but it's obviously possible, and if you want to experiment, sure, why not? But there are some, at least, problems that I mentioned, and probably some other that will appear in some cases. But a good idea. If you get something like that, if you get set up which uses Nix or Docker inside your system configuration, you can share on Guix mailing list or maybe in some chats, or you can write me a message on email. It will be interesting to see. Okay, let's conclude our talk. I've written 3 points, and first one is Guix is already quite good. If you adjust your expectations and learn a little about its background, you will see it and probably will be looking at it from a different angle. There are escape hatches that you can use to get the software that is not packaged yet, but I would advise not to do it until it's very required and unavoidable. And obviously, most important point, you can make Guix even better by contributing package definitions, contributing translations, or even articles or other content that can be used by other people. Just share the knowledge and involve more people in the project, and it will grow and will be better. Okay, thank you everyone for the attention, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye.